It was the second weekend of November, 2023, when my cousin Ben and I drove into the mountains outside of Salmon, Idaho. We'd been planning the trip since summer. Deer season was open, the weather looked good, and both of us had managed to get the same 3 days off from work. I was 29 at the time and worked as a diesel mechanic. Ben was 32 and drove trucks for a construction company. We hunted together almost every fall. Neither of us was an expert, but we'd spent enough time outdoors to know what we were doing. The area we picked wasn't some famous hunting destination. It was mostly public land with miles of logging roads and thick pine forest. You could drive for an hour without seeing another truck. That was exactly why we liked it. We left town before sunrise on Friday. The weather was cold but clear, somewhere around 30 degrees. There was frost covering the grass along the roads, and the higher we climbed, the more patches of snow we started seeing under the trees. Around 8 that morning, we reached an old clearing we'd used once before. There was enough room to park the truck and pitch a small tent. A narrow game trail disappeared into the woods behind camp, and a creek ran about 200 yards downhill. Everything looked exactly how I remembered it. Quiet, peaceful, normal. We spent most of Friday hiking different ridges, looking for fresh tracks. We found plenty of deer sign, but never got a clean shot. Around sunset, we headed back to camp with empty hands and started cooking canned chili over a small propane stove. That's when we heard the first rifle shot. It wasn't unusual. Other hunters were scattered around the mountains. But this shot sounded close. Too close. Ben looked toward the trees. That wasn't more than a few hundred yards, I nodded. It'll probably move farther away. Neither of us thought much about it. People misjudge distances in the mountains all the time. About 15 minutes later, another shot echoed through the trees. Same direction, same distance. Then everything went quiet again. We finished eating, cleaned up our gear, and climbed into the tent before 9. I don't know how much later it was when I woke up. At first, I couldn't figure out what had disturbed me. Then I heard it again. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Slow footsteps, not running, not hiking, just walking, right outside the tent. I stayed perfectly still. The footsteps stopped. For several seconds, there wasn't a sound. Then whoever it was kept walking. The footsteps circled around the truck before disappearing into the woods. I whispered Ben's name. He answered immediately. I hear it. Neither of us reached for the zipper. Neither of us wanted to look outside. After another minute, the forest became completely silent again. Eventually, Ben whispered, "Probably another hunter. Maybe. But why would another hunter be walking around someone else's campsite after midnight without saying a word?"
Where should I put the packs? Just
The
inside
next
the door
morning,
for
we
now.
found footprints around the truck. Boot prints, fresh. The strange part wasn't that someone had walked through camp. Public land meant people could be anywhere. The strange part was how the tracks moved. They circled the truck twice, stopped beside my door, stopped beside Ben's, then continued toward the trees. No tire tracks, no ATV tracks, just footprints. Ben looked at me. "That's weird," I shrugged. "Maybe somebody got lost." Neither of us really believed that. Still, we packed our day bags and started hiking before daylight. The morning went well. We spotted 2 does around 8 and later found fresh buck tracks crossing a rocky hillside. Around noon, while eating sandwiches beside a fallen log, I noticed something hanging from a tree branch about 30 yards away. At first, I thought it was orange flagging tape. When I walked closer, I realized it wasn't. It was one of those cheap, reflective emergency blankets, the silver kind people keep in survival kits. It had been tied carefully around the trunk at eye level. Ben frowned. "Did you leave that?" "No." Neither of us touched it. Hunters sometimes mark areas with ribbon or tape, but this wasn't marking a trail. It was wrapped all the way around the tree, almost like someone wanted it to be noticed. We kept moving. About an hour later, we found another one. Then another, always just far enough apart that you could barely see the next one through the trees. Ben finally stopped walking. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" I looked at the line of silver flashing between the pines. "It almost looks like it's leading somewhere." Neither of us wanted to follow it, so we turned east instead. That should have been the end of it. Instead, we started hearing footsteps again. Not close, just somewhere behind us. Every time we'd stop, the sound stopped. Every time we walked, it started again. Neither of us said anything for almost 10 minutes. Finally, Ben muttered, "Someone's back there." I glanced over my shoulder. Nothing, just rows of pine trees. The woods were thick enough that visibility was maybe 50 yards. If somebody stayed behind cover, we'd never see them. I raised my voice. "Hello?" No answer. The footsteps stopped instantly. Silence. We waited. Nothing. Ben laughed nervously. "Guess we're hearing things." Maybe. That's what I wanted to believe. Then, just as we started walking again, crunch, 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 behind us, matching our pace. Exactly. Neither of us said another word. We kept walking, hoping whoever was behind us would eventually go another direction. Instead, the footsteps stayed with us. Every time we stopped, they stopped. Every time we moved, they moved. After another 5 minutes, Ben quietly said, "On 3, turn around." I nodded. 1, 2, 3. We spun around with our rifles up. Nothing, just rows of pine trees and patches of snow. The woods were completely still. "Did you see anything?" I asked. Ben shook his head. "No." We decided to head back toward camp earlier than planned. As we walked downhill, I noticed fresh boot prints crossing our own tracks. They hadn't been there when we came up that morning. Someone had walked behind us. That was enough to make both of us nervous. When we reached camp just before sunset, something immediately felt wrong. The cooler lid was open. Neither of us had left it that way. Inside, nothing was missing except 2 bottles of water. At first we thought it might have been an animal, but there weren't any claw marks or torn food packages. Only muddy boot prints beside the truck. Someone had been standing there. Ben looked around the trees. "I don't like this." Neither did I. We packed everything before dark, planning to leave first thing in the morning. That night, we locked ourselves inside the truck instead of sleeping in the tent. Around 1:30 a.m., I woke to a faint scraping sound. Someone was dragging something across the gravel. I slowly looked through the windshield. About 40 yards away, between the trees, a person was standing perfectly still. No flashlight, no orange hunting vest, just a dark figure watching the truck. I whispered Ben's name. By the time he looked up, the figure stepped behind a tree and disappeared. We stayed awake until sunrise. As soon as there was enough light to see, we packed the last of our gear and left. About 6 miles down the mountain, we finally got a cell signal and called the local sheriff's office. A deputy met us at the ranger station later that morning. When we described the boot prints, the strange markers, and the man watching our camp, he didn't seem surprised. He asked one question that still bothers me. "Did you follow the silver markers?" I told him no. He nodded, and simply said, "Good." He never explained why. We never hunted that area again. To this day, I still wonder who spent 2 nights following us through those mountains and where those silver markers were leading. About 3 weeks later, I got a call from the sheriff's office. The deputy I had spoken with asked if I could email him the photos I'd taken during the trip. Most of them were just pictures of the mountains, but one accidentally showed a silver marker tied to a tree in the background. After I sent it, I never heard back. A few days later, Ben texted me a news article. A hunter had been reported missing less than 10 miles from where we had camped. His truck was found at an old logging road, but he was never located. Search teams spent several days looking through the area before calling it off. There wasn't enough information to say whether it had anything to do with what we experienced. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it was just a tragic accident. But I couldn't stop thinking about those footprints around our camp. The person standing in the trees, and those silver markers leading deeper into the forest. The strangest part is something I didn't notice until months later. While going through my hunting photos on my computer, I zoomed in on one picture of our campsite. It had been taken on the first afternoon, long before we realized anyone was nearby. Between the trees behind our tent, there was someone standing there, far enough away that I hadn't seen them at the time, close enough that they were clearly watching us. I don't know how long they had been there, or what they wanted. All I know is that from the moment we arrived in those mountains, we were never hunting alone.